So there you have it. Now, the 43rd ASEAN Summit has just over last Thursday, anchored by the theme of ASEAN Epicentrum of Growth. Now, Indonesia's leadership has enhanced the association's role in global arena. Now, the successful summit has also included lunch and gala dinner, which featured local cuisines for the leaders of ASEAN and other heads of states. Now, here with us, Chef Degan.
Yes, Chef Degan, congratulations to you and your team.
Thank you.
For those successful culinary events.
Thank you.
That was enjoyed by the state leaders and heads of delegates at the ASEAN Summit.
Yes.
How did you feel to be involved in such a mammoth project, if I may say so, for a culinary team?
Of course, you're honored. First, you're honored that you're thought about and that you can join such an event, right? But actually, in the beginning, I was not even. I was on holidays. I didn't know that I should join this event. So I was on holidays. I was called when I was in holidays. And then when I was about to fly back, I was bombarded with messages and all that. And then when I reached Jakarta, then I was right away called for meetings. We went on meetings. Chef Arnold and myself, Chef Arnold was organizing everything, right? So I was briefed, what to do, because they had basically two big events. One was the gala dinner and one was the spouse program at Taman Mini, which is basically away from the place where everything happened that was in the Senayan area, right? So they asked me whether I could take care of the place at Taman Mini because they wanted somebody who is senior, has worked things like this before and basically left alone to do the entire thing. Everybody was concentrating on the gala dinner, right? And I was briefed that it was a very, very important event, right? Because Ibu Iriana Joko Widodo was basically hosting the entire event with all the other ladies of the heads of states. And it was very challenging, but it was very exciting as well.
What was the biggest challenge, Chef?
I think the biggest
program.
I think the biggest challenge is that you had to. It was a theme, right? The Epicurn Centrum of Growth, right? And then the venue played a big role. You're in Taman Mini, so you have to think of Indonesia. It has to be an Indonesian dish.
That's right.
Yet you have to bring the Indonesian food to another level, to an international level. Right? I can say that. Before also every state dinner usually you have Indonesian food, right? But this time it was Indonesian food with a different twist. Like the cuisine was still original in its flavor and taste, but the presentation, the texture were all into international standards now with all these young talented chefs we have in this country. And it was about time that we did and they show played everything at that time at this event.
Indonesian dish with a different twist.
With a different twist, a modern twist, but yet original.
So authentic Indonesian flavors, but elevated into international fine dining level.
Exactly, and you do that because you have to use Western skills. You have to use Western cooking techniques. You have to cook your protein to a certain level, not overcook it, and that basically raised the entire image and quality of the food, right? Was very nice.
Was that actually one of the brief you received at that first meeting that you mentioned before, that you need to present Indonesian food in that sort of spectacle, that they belong in a fine dining and international level?
Yes, that was the message. That was the message basically. We want, they wanted to bring Indonesian food up, and it was time. I mean, it is. We have all the resources, we have all the talents, and to do it. And I think it was a great platform to do it. And of course, it's a challenge for everyone, right? Because you have to do this, and when you have so many eyes looking at you, it sometimes get a little bit nervous. You get nervous, but,
it can be a bit daunting,
it is what it is, you know. And you just concentrate to what you do, and the guys did a really great job on it.
How do you decide on cooking what kind of meals the spouses?
So many options, right? When it comes to Indonesian food. How do you choose?
That's a good question. That's a good question. First of all, what we have to do is we have to ask for the dietary restriction of all the participants, right? First, I was asking for that. So when I got it, you can see the likes and dislikes of all the members that joined the dinner. the lunch or the dinner,
Or
right?
the dinner, yeah.
And we had to work out on their menu. And then in my case, because it was all ladies, and then it was a lunch, basically a early lunch.
Okay.
It was like a brunch time,
Brunch time.
right?
Okay.
So meaning I had to think that they just had breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of refreshments along the way until they come to the venue, right?
Okay.
And then I had to think of a menu that is light, fresh,
Okay.
healthy,
Healthy.
Yeah.
and yet very Indonesian. Right? So I had to
is
choose
hard.
all these factors, right?
yeah.
And then we came up with a nice menu.
Okay.
We refined it after a couple of tastings, right? And I listened also. You, as a chef, you have to listen what people, when they try the food, you have to listen because it's very important, right?
Okay.
And then to make some changes,
Okay.
changes, and then we had the menu.
Okay.
Wow.
So we heard a behind the scenes story about one of the tasting
Yes, yes.
events where they couldn't decide between two appetizers, if I'm not mistaken, between an
Yes, yes.
appetizer and a soup.
Yes.
And then maybe you can tell us the story
Yeah.
yourself, chef, please.
Yes. It was like this. All the dishes, all the set menus in all the events
Yeah.
were designed to have only 3 courses.
Three
Okay.
courses.
Appetizer, main course, dessert.
Okay.
So I proposed appetizer, main course, dessert,
Yeah.
right? For the appetizers, I proposed a sayur urap with scallops.
Nice.
Right? And for main course was ikan baramundi or ikan kakap
Yeah.
putih, yeah?
Yeah.
With dabu-dabu, with
Dabu-dabu.
sambal dabu-dabu.
Oh,
right?
that's
Delish.
refreshing.
And for dessert, it was a es degan.
As the gun.
Nice.
It's like your name.
It was all very Indonesian,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So all very Indonesian.
Yeah.
And then there was one comment of one of the ladies that joined the tasting. She
Okay.
said, "Can we give an option of a soup and then decide maybe whether it fits or not?"
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So I looked at the directory restriction, and
Yeah.
there was one participant who didn't want to have a creamy soup. They didn't like coconut milk or
Okay.
cream, right? So
Okay.
it has to be a clear soup. So I made a consomme out of sop buntut. So we
Oh.
made a sop buntut based on the
Okay.
sop buntut. We made a consomme out of it.
Yes.
So it looks fine.
Yes.
And then we added in. I mean, for them to try and to
Yeah.
decide which one.
Okay.
And nobody could make a decision. And then they said, why don't you just incorporate it in the 3-course menu so it becomes a 4-course menu?
wow.
Oh, wow.
But then there comes an additional challenge because
Okay.
there was a time limit
Yes.
to serve the food, right? So
Yeah.
we
True,
had
true.
to really quickly serve
Okay.
these 2
Yeah.
appetizers in the beginning, first and second course, very quick.
Yes.
So you are within that timeline,
Okay.
right? So,
Yes.
but it managed and they all liked it, and that's the most important
They
thing.
couldn't say no.
I couldn't say no.
The consomme. No, no.
Well, your soup. Nice
This stays in.
Right? So buntut is the
Now, you
thing.
mentioned about the timeline of the ladies eating.
Yes.
Now, what about your own timeline, chef?
Yeah.
Walk us through your day at the lunch.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. First, we had like 3 tastings before we actually came to the D-Day,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And we were actually preparing half of the items before. I was working together with the Dharma Bangsa Hotel. They were doing the
Okay.
service, but I did the preparation in their kitchen as well. So we were preparing half of the dishes at the hotel, and then we brought it to the site.
Okay.
So we had to be there because the lunch itself was after 10 o'clock, between I think
okay.
10:30 or something, right?
Okay.
But the ladies came at 9 o'clock to go around Taman
Okay.
Mini to
Yeah.
see everything. So we had to be there because the Presidential Security Force, they closed everything by 6 o'clock. So we had to be there like 3 o'clock in the morning.
3 o'clock in the
So
morning.
we had to leave at 2,
Okay.
be there at 3 o'clock, and then we had to prepare for food security. You know, the things, the dishes for the
Yeah.
President Security Forces to check the lab, right?
Okay.
To check
Lab.
on the food security.
Oh, wow.
So that had been done 3 hours before the actual event, right? So,
Okay.
and then once everything was secure, and then we did the finishing of the dishes,
Yes.
and then you had to work with the service flow. We had to talk with the service, the timing of the event organizers.
Yeah.
They had the timing because there's a program of dance, welcome dance, there's a program of presentations, and And there the food has to fit in very smoothly, and that was very challenging, and you had to push the people behind so everything was on time, you know.
So
timing is of the essence. Everything must
very
be
much
impeccable.
of the essence. You cannot be like 1 minute late because everything will be late then, right? So it has to be on the spot and right, and the food has to be hot, and the food has to be fresh. This all within that timeline, right? So it was a juggle. Organizational juggle was it, but it was good.
How many chefs were involved in the preparation for the lunch, for the spouse
for the lunch, because we are not so many, there were only four of us on the prep, only 4 of us.
Oh, wow.
And then I had a team of 3 chefs and me, were 4. And then I had also another three chefs that helped us when we dished out, right? 3-4 chefs that dished out. So we had enough people to help to dish it out, right? So it can be everything managed on time. You know? So but when you ask me how many people were really involved, a lot, because you had the stewarding people from the hotel taking care of the chinaware, the silverware, right? And then the service people bring the food to the place. And then you had the food security of the Presidential Security Force. They were also there, very important to make sure that everything is in order from a food safety point of view, right? So.
I can only imagine how hectic it was, and Chef Dagan luckily was there to control all the chaos and to deliver a memorable lunch for the First Ladies and the heads of delegates there at the spouse program. We're going to talk a little bit more, of course, with Chef Dagan, but now we're going to take a little break, but don't go anywhere. Starting Point will be right back.